हरि ओम। ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादम् शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यम् केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। We are discussing Brahma Sutra Shankara Bhashya in the first adhyaya of first pada, 24th sutra. The sutra is called Jyotish Charanadhikaranam. It is referred to as Jyotir Adhikaranam in other Brahma Sutra Bhashya by other stalwarts like Ramanuja Nimbarkacharya or Madhvacharya. Since we are following Shankara Bhashya, the name of the Adhikarana is Jyotish Charanadhikarana. At times we may get a suspicion in the mind or a bit of clear question in the mind that Brahma Sutra has been given such a high pedestal in the scriptural anthology. However, it looks like that it is discussing time and again some mundane topics like Akasha, Vayu, Prana, Agni. It is referring to some Upanishadic utterances. The reason why I feel Brahma Sutra as either lacking in interest and sapidity, or boring, or something that is not very concrete but very fluffy in nature, it's simply because the Grantha in itself is of a very high pedestal. It is the intellect of ours which is not able to grapple the seriousness of the Grantha. One needs to remember that Brahma Sutra is a discussion on Upanishadic utterances, Upanishadic words and mantra and rucha, by which the entire discussion is based for ultimate realization. Ultimate realization is not an ordinary phenomena. At an ordinary grahastha level, performing the yajna having the ritualistic preparation for the ishtika or the laying of the bricks, putting it in a particular shape, creating a Vedi, offering the ablution. This, when it is concrete, gives us a sense of understanding within the ambit of our intellectual capacity. Yajna or homa, we can understand. The fire that is kept ablaze with the help of offerings is something we can understand. The rules regarding what should be kept or given as arghya in the homa or the agni can be understood by us because it is within the ambit of intellectual understanding. However, these are so-called simplistic rituals that are normally replete in the early two parts of all the Vedas, when they are subsequently lifted up to the higher echelons of understandings, that is where the intellectual understanding of ours falls short of what the Rishis are talking about. Upanishad essentially is admixture of the utterances or the sayings of the revelations that the Rishis had at an level which is normally esoteric to us, unfathomable to us, beyond our intellectual reach. So in order to bridge the gap between those who spoke of something which our intellect cannot understand, some amount of communication needs to be established between the rucha or the mantra of Veda and the common understanding that we have about the world. Not one single statement in Upanishad speaks about the normal world. Our curiosities, like how wide the sky is, how many stars are there, how big this universe is, that is the uppermost limit of our intellectual even curiosity. However, all these become the domain of intellectual experience for the rishis and the mantra drashtas. That is why those who utter the mantras like us, we do utter Gayatri mantra, but what we utter is the utterances of Gayatri mantra. We are mantra uchchara karta, but we do not actually experience the mantra by visualizing it through the eye of intelligence. That being the case in case of the rishis, they are called as mantra drashta. The one who sees the mantra in its real purport right in front of his eyes, meaning at the intellectual eye level, the mantra becomes the correct purport and the significance dawns in that particular intellect, which is Medha. And all the discussions in Brahma Sutra and Upanishad are of Medhavi people. Medhavi is the minimum condition. It's a condition where, in order to understand the significance, one has to have the intellectual development to the level of Medha, not the ordinary or normal buddhi. That is the reason why very rare are those who attempt, or rather dare to attempt to understand the Brahma Sutra. It is not a play at the hands of a commoner. If you are not replete with the Sattva Guna, if you are not prepared intellectually yourself through the studies, through the pious deeds, through the inculcation of Sattva Guna, it becomes utterly impossible to really go to the depths of Brahma Sutra. So it's a rare thing. And perhaps that is the reason why it becomes a kind of an unpenetrable wall. And the whole purpose of the discussion that we have is in order to find out how we can bring within the ambit of our intellectual understanding the deep meanings that are associated with Upanishadic utterances by imparting the specificity that is required to the mantra. And this imparting the specificity is the work of the Brahma Sutra. Once viewed from this perspective, an ordinary fire, which is usually called as Agni, and each Agni has a flame. The flame is the most powerful aspect of the Agni, that which is able to burn and finish everything, is called flame or Jyoti. Jyoti is the most important, effective, and operative part of the Agni. Or in other words, it is the crux and the core of the Agni. Such Agni, with its potentiality to consume everything that is around it by sheer power of its burning, puts a question to us. If the Agni can consume the things around it and reduce it to ashes by the sheer power of burning, who is it who gives fire the burning power? The fire is an element. An element is an effect of the cause. If Agni is the effect of something, then the power of the Agni essentially is the effect of something lying behind the power of the Agni. And that which makes Agni powerful enough to burn, the power behind the Agni, is the Lakshanarth, or the indication or indicative meaning of the Jyoti whenever it is uttered. Most profound and elaborate being the language of Sanskrit, the words that are used in common parlance, in day-to-day behavior, are the same words that are used at the esoteric level. The philosophical jargons in other religions and other languages completely differ than the common language. That is why they have no connection whatsoever with the common language and the philosophical language. However, in Sanskrit being the most profound and elaborate language, Deva Bhasha as it is being called, the same word can be used at a commoner's common level, or the same word can be used at the highest of the higher level. So the Agni that indicates the Agni on a common level as a flame on which perhaps the food is made, Saha Pachati, the Agni that cooks the food. The same Agni then gets referred when the philosophical heights are being under consideration. However, the meaning of the Agni changes here. The Jyoti of the lamp that enlightens in the darkness while doing the day-to-day work in the household, the same Jyoti completely changes its meaning when it is taken at a higher level. So all the words that are used in Upanishad appear to be the words of a common language, however with an uncommon meaning. When it talks about the Surya, Aditya, at a commoner's language, Aditya is one who shines in the morning and comes with the dawn and sets at the sunset. However, when the same Aditya is referred in the Upanishads, it assumes an esoteric and a very higher significance. And that is why it is not only the higher significance in the terms of meaning, it is higher significance in terms of attainment. one should keep in mind when Jyoti is being said in a common language, it may be a lamp. But the same Jyoti, when it is said in Upanishad, it is something that is worth to be meditated upon at a higher level. And every meditation, every upasana being a karma, it always has its phalam. And the phalam of ordinary things are very easy to understand. A karma of lightening the jyoti of a lamp in a common household has a phalam of getting the light so that everything becomes visible. But the jyoti that is being meditated upon in the upasana, the phalam of that is also lightening, but not lightening the household, but lightening the inner atmosphere. It is lightening the inner sphere of consciousness. If the ordinary light, when the lamp is lit, if it can give the light to see a couple of things around that light, it has a limitation that it only enlightens things that are lying around the lamp. This being the jyoti inside, lightening of which the sphere of that enlightenment is far wider. And what do you see when a lamp is lighted? An object lying in the darkness suddenly becomes to the light. And what do you see when the inner light is lighted? You see that which was so far beyond your intellectual understanding. In other words, the jyoti that is enlightened in the inner consciousness, if properly meditated upon as upasana, then the sphere of knowing that particular sphere of consciousness widens to such an extent that so far unexplored levels of experiences automatically becomes experienced. The meditator moves higher and higher and higher in the sphere of consciousness with the lightening of this jyoti, the jyoti which is not visible in the form of a flame that we normally see, but has the same function of light, enlightening the objects around. Here it is the enlightening the spheres of consciousness so far unknown to the intellect. When in Upanishad the jyoti is referred, a commoner always thinks that it is being referred to the jyoti that he sees in his day-to-day life. Is that so? When Aditya is referred in Upanishad, a common man thinks that it is a reference to the Aditya that is there in the sky. When Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat, when it is uttered as a Gayatri mantra, ordinary mind thinks about the sun that is there in the sky. But the Savitru that is referred to in the Gayatri mantra is the Savitru that is there in the inner consciousness sphere as the sun of that sphere. It is an analogical, it is a parallel comparison between what we see in a common world and what we experience in the uncommon world. That being the case, it creates a kind of a confusion in the mind that whenever the utterances are talking about the normal mortal things, are these references to the normal things that we know of and experience, or it is reference to that which we have so far not experienced and uncommon? Is it the Aditya that I see every day that is being referred in Upanishads, or the Aditya that I have not seen so far? And in order to alleviate, in order to remove the suspicion, in order to remove the doubts in the mind, samshaya, that's why every adhikarana in Brahma Sutra has a part called samshaya and samshaya nivarana. The samshaya, the doubt, And mind well, it is not a hollow doubt. Doubt or samshaya. The word samshaya in Sanskrita means that what has remained as shaya, balance, that what is lurking in the mind after comparing and studying two things or more things. So it is not a dry doubt like who says God exists. Simply raising an objection is not called samshaya. Samshaya has a weight behind it. Samshaya is an honorable act. When you have to have the knowledge about a particular thing, it is only when it comes to the certainty of the knowledge that doubt arises in the mind, which is called samshaya. The one who doesn't have the knowledge has no question of having a samshaya. So the upasaka, who has been constantly endeavoring to find the ultimate reality or the Brahma, after he has completely taken himself into the art of meditation, he gets certain doubts when in the art of concentration, certain experiences start coming. Those experiences are uncommon, not normally experienced. At that point of time, he does get an experience that what I'm experiencing, is this the ultimate or it is not the ultimate? That being the case, Upanishads do refer to Akasha, Prana, and the Jyoti as the highest of the high. So similarly, when the Jyoti is referred in Upanishad, and it is referred at many, many places, is that reference of Upanishad is towards the normal Jyoti that we know of as a lamp, or that which gives light, or it is referring to the Brahma? So when the yogi sits in meditation, or the upasaka is sitting in meditation and is contemplating upon the Jyoti, there is actually an experience of enormous effulgence. That enormous effulgence, the mammoth dimension of which gives a feeling of vastness of the light, of the effulgence, which only the mind can experience with the elevated level of intellect called medha. And that is then referred by the Rishi in its height of upasana. Those utterances are recorded in Upanishad. And that is the reason why Jyotiradhikarana is to alleviate the doubt whether this Jyoti is a reference to the common Jyoti that we know of, or the Jyoti is reference to the Brahma. If it is reference to the Brahma, then how is it that Brahma has got a shape and a light? Brahma doesn't have light, doesn't have a darkness, doesn't have light, both. Just imagine yourself and stretch your imagination to think that what would be the state when there is no light, no darkness? Stretch yourself. Howsoever you may stretch yourself, you cannot imagine a state where there is no light and no darkness. You feel completely helpless, handicapped, because we are conditioned with light and darkness. We can either experience a light or experience a darkness, but we cannot even imagine, forget the experience of that state where there is no light, there is no darkness. That being the case, if you cannot imagine a particular thing, how can you do upasana of that thing? Yes, the Brahma is beyond the light and the darkness. Agreed. But it is of no use to me because I cannot even imagine it. How can I then contemplate it? Because the only way to get the reality or the consciousness or the Brahma is through meditation. Indriyas are of virtually no use. They are useless to know the Brahma. If these Panchendriyas cannot do anything, then there is only one thing left for me to grapple the Brahma, and that is my buddhi. And if my buddhi has to grapple it, then my buddhi has a limitation that it can only think of that which it can imagine. It cannot think of anything which it cannot imagine. Buddhi cannot think of anything which it cannot imagine. That means buddhi's limitation is imagination. If you can imagine, buddhi can think of it. Imagine a man with 6 legs. You can imagine, because you've seen with 2 legs, you add 4 more, 6 legs, at least as an imagination. It is not there in existence. You can imagine it. You can imagine the light so huge, so huge, so huge that it is somewhat equivalent to hundreds of suns. Shatasurya, you can imagine. Imagination. You feel blinded even by the imagination. Agreed. The light is so much that you can't see anything, because with one sun you cannot. With 100, what will happen? Imagine the sky is replete with thousands of suns. It is a very scary sunlight, but still you can imagine it. However, if you are asked to imagine a state where there is no light, there is no darkness, you are crippled. You're crippled. Your mind will shift between light and darkness, but not beyond light and beyond darkness. Not possible. That being the case, to reach to that level which is beyond description, the only way is to reach highest of the imagination and then go beyond imagination. So when you think of highest of the imagination is to imagine the light at the highest. Ordinarily, we have experienced the sun as the highest light. We can extend the imagination to higher and higher and higher light. Why so? Because by imagining something of a very high dimension, there is a possibility of crossing the boundary of imagination. Imagine to such an extent that the imagination itself is transcended. Then at that transcendence, it will be possible to reach, not imagine, it will be possible to reach beyond darkness and beyond light. This is the essence of Brahma Vidya. From known to the unknown, to the boundary beyond known and unknown. To know is to experience, which we all know. And we know that's why it is a secular, it is a knowledge that we have. Then we stretch our imagination to that which we currently do not know, but by imagination, with the help of pure and clear mind, a fully concentrated mind in upasana, choosing a subject of our own choice, and imagining it in its highest and biggest dimension, we can experience it. So it is the imagination that helps us in experiencing a thing, and the art used for that is a careful, penetrating concentration called upasana. So if it is light is our purpose of imagination, it is adityopasana. The same Aditya that I have seen at a mortal level, now I imagine it to be highly effulgent than the current Aditya or Martanda, and I do upasana and ultimately I reach that level. This extrapolated and highly exaggerated imagination can be made an object of meditation. But in order to do that, the mind should have the capacity. The capacity is basically of the intellect, because in the mind everything is useless except the intellect. So if the intellect has been sharpened with the help of Sattva Guna, then the intellect can help us in imagining enormous dimension of the light and start concentrating on it, as a result of which there is an actual experience of that effulgence, which then is uttered in Upanishads as the Jyoti. The same Jyoti has been the topic under discussion of Jyotish Adhikarana or Jyotish Charanadhikarana. The whole discussion has started because of Chandogya Upanishad. So important is the Chandogya Upanishad that in Brahma Sutra, all Upanishads are studied and explained to remove the doubt. But the maximum references, if at all we see in Brahma Sutra of any Upanishad, it is Chandogya Upanishad. In the Shankara Bhashya, Shankaracharya has taken 810 references to Chandogya Upanishad. This indicates the importance of Chandogya Upanishad. So in Chandogya Upanishad, in the third chapter or Prapathaka, in the 13th section or Khanda, the 7th mantra is the mantra that has created doubt in the mind, and that is explained in this Jyotish Charanadhikarana. What is the mantra on which this entire Adhikarana is based? The mantra is Atha Yadataha Paro Divo Jyotirdivyate Vishwataha Prushteshu Sarvataha Prushteshva Anuttameshu Uttameshu Lokeshvidam Vav Tad Yasmin Tad Yadidam Asmin Ataha Purushe Jyotihi. What is the meaning of the mantra, Shruti mantra, Chandogya Upanishad mantra? Now, Atha, now, higher than this heaven, above the world, higher than everything in the highest world, higher than which nothing exists, the light that shines is the same light in the human being. In other words, highest of the higher light, shining at the highest level, beyond which nothing higher exists, is the same light that exists in you, in your body. This is the mantra. And what is the Samshaya? Samshaya is, are they referring to the Jyoti that we know commonly? Or is this a reference to Brahma? This is the Samshaya. Kim iha Jyoti shabdena adityadikam Jyoti abhidhiyate kim va par atmaha. Is it referring to Atma, that is Brahma, or it is referring to Aditya and other kind of Surya? This is because one has to understand the Purva Paksha is trying to object, because it says, moment you say light, it cannot be Brahma. Why? Brahma doesn't have any guna. Brahma is full of light. No, that will be wrong. Why? Brahma is nirguna. When the reference comes to Jyoti or light or anything, it has to be something which is within the Prakriti. It cannot be Brahma. because Brahma has no qualities. And that is where the Uttara Paksha or Siddhanta Paksha is trying to explain that it is because it is only a reference to Brahma, nothing else. It is not ordinary Jyoti or Aditya that we are talking about, because this is called Jyoti Rupena Brahma Upasana. Jyoti Rupena Brahma Upasana meaning you think of the highest effulgence. That means you imagine. Then you start meditating upon that what you have imagined. And what is the phalam? That what you have imagined, you will become. In Upasana, Upasya and Upasak at the end of meditation become one. Let Shaligram be there, doesn't matter. It's a small black stone. But if it is meditated upon as Vishnu, I shall become Vishnu, provided the Upasana reaches the height that it is supposed to reach. That is how precisely Tapovana Maharaj reached to the state of Vishnu Pada by imagining himself as Vishnu, called Ahangraha Upasana. If this is the Upasana, then why this Jyoti cannot be taken as Surya or Agni Prakasha? To explain this, Shankaracharya says, and mind well, Brahma Sutra presupposes that every student has already studied minimum 12 Upanishads, which we haven't. Because the explanation in Brahma Sutra, while explaining the Upanishadic mantras, it refers to all the 12 Upanishads and picks up from here and there to support the arguments. That is why, to understand why this Jyoti means the higher effulgence for the meditation as a Saguna Brahma Upasana. Take an ordinary thing, make it extraordinary for meditation, it becomes Saguna Brahma Upasana. We know Prakash as an ordinary person. Now take the Prakash to the highest level and meditate upon it. That becomes Saguna Brahma Upasana. Because the manifestation that we know of the light, of the darkness, of fire, of Prithvi is a limited manifestation that we know. Unlimited manifestation of this is the higher level called Vibhuti. And Bhagavanta says, Vibhuti is also me. So by meditating upon Vibhuti or the higher manifestation, it becomes easier to reach the Nirguna Brahma. If you want to scale Mount Everest, start scaling the smaller mountains. Because smaller mountains are similar, not same, similar to Mount Everest. You will know how to climb, how you become breathless, how you support yourself. You learn. And same learning, as you start scaling higher and higher and higher mountain, a day comes, you reach the Mount Everest. And then there is nothing else scalable. There is nothing to go for mountaineering later on. So Shankaracharya says, in order to understand whether this Jyoti means Brahma or not, you must go back to the sixth mantra to understand the seventh mantra of Chandogya Upanishad, in which it is said, Tavanasya mahima tato jayansya purushaha pado asya sarva bhutani tripadasya amruta diviti. Now this tripad, there is a reference to Tripada in the sixth mantra of Chandogya Upanishad. When it comes to Tripada, then becomes imperative on our part to understand what is Gayatri Mantra. First thing to understand is, in Upanishad and in Brahma Sutra, the higher Upasana is given as a part of Saguna Brahma Upasana. So Akasha can be taken as your deity, and you can meditate upon the Akash and its vastness. that is Akasha Adhikarana, we already saw. You can take prana and meditate upon prana in order to know the higher manifestation of prana, which is the spandana of all this universe. Now it is the jyoti that you can take up. And when you take the jyoti, you need to understand the Gayatri mantra, because there is a reference to Gayatri mantra in Jyotish Charanadhikarana. Gayatri mantra, if we see in Rigveda, Gayatri mantra is there in multiple Veda, first of all. Gayatri mantra is in the form of Tatsa Viturvarenyam, without any Om, Bhu, Bhurvaha, Swaha. In some places, it is with these three Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, which are called Vyavrutis. So Gayatri mantra is without Vyavruti, with Vyavruti in some part of Upanishada, and in some part it is with Omkara, Vyavruti and Gayatri mantra. Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha Tatsaviturvarenya Vargo Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. It's in the full form, without Vyavruti or without Vyavruti and Omkar. In three different ways Gayatri is given. But if we look at the Gayatri mantra mentioned in Upanishads, wherever it is mentioned, we come to know that Gayatri is exalted to Brahma Upasana. And Brahma Upasana, when we say, how can Gayatri mantra be exalted to Brahma Upasana or Brahma Vidya? That which is considered as Savitru. It is a propitiation of Savitru. Hey Savitru, O Savitru, let that effulgence, that's Viturvarenyam, that to which you, blessed one, Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat, grant me the boon that the same effulgence that is there in Savitru, may it be there in my Dhi. Dhi, which is prepared, the Dhi is Buddhi, which is gone to the higher level to become a receptacle to receive the effulgence from the Savitru. In the Lakshanartha, I think somebody's mic is on. Please switch off the mic. When we talk about the effulgence, we are inviting that effulgence in our Dhi. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi.
Sureshji, your mic is on, Sureshji.
Yeah, 1 minute. I'm sorry, 1 minute. When we talk about Gayatri mantra, the Gayatri that is meditated upon is in the form of effulgence, and that effulgence in Gayatri mantra, in Gayatri Adhikarana, refers to 4 padas. The pada means charana, 4 quarters or 4 pada, of which One path is this manifested world, and remaining three quarters are beyond the time and space. In other words, Gayatri Mantra refers to that effulgence which a quarter of which has become the universe, and three quarters of which is beyond the time and space, that is beyond the creation. That is referred to in this mantra called Tavanasya Mahima Tato Jayansya Purushaha Pado Asya Sarva Bhutani. One pada Asya Sarva Bhutani, three padasya Amruta Diviti. That means the three quarters are nectar in the heaven which is full of light. Now, this is a reference to the light that is beyond the light of lights. Now, every time a light need not be taken into mind as something that is giving light in the form of a lamp. The light or the jyoti is also taken as an implied meaning of that which makes anything possible to understand. The buddhi gets lighted, meaning there is no light in the buddhi. The ability of buddhi to understand the thing itself is called enlightening of buddhi. So that means it is a principle that enlightens, sometimes in the form of actual light that we see, sometimes in the form of enlightenment that happens inside at the level of the buddhi. So that is why the 12th khanda of Chandogya Upanishad refers to Gayatri Mantra, and that is called Gayatri Vidya. Why Gayatri Mantra is considered to be one of the highest mantra when there are so many mantras available in Upanishad is because it is through this Gayatri Mantra it is possible to reach the highest of Saguna Brahma. How it is possible? Gayatri va idam sarvam bhutam yad idam kimcha Vagve Gayatri Vakva Indra Sarva Bhutam Gayatri Chatrayate Cha. If Gayatri Mantra is understood as per this particular mantra, the meaning of which is all that exists in the world, Sarva Bhutam Yadam Yad Idam, wherever and whatever it is, Idam Kimcha is Gayatri. Because world gives names to all things and also tells them not to fear. What it means is everything in the world is Gayatri. That is what the mantra, the Upanishad says. If everything is Gayatri, that means in the form of Gayatri mantra, the reference is directly to the Brahma. The Prakasha that is referred to in Gayatri Mantra is referring to the Prakasha which is the Savitru, of which the both are referring to the Brahma. The Vachyartha of the Gayatri Mantra is it is the Savitru which gives this particular light to this earth, and that light comes to us, and that is how our life is sustained. In the similar manner, the way the Savitru sustains and maintains the life on the earth, that Savitru which is there at an esoteric level, let it effulge my mind or buddhi so that I am able to appreciate and comprehend the Saguna Brahma, which in due course will help me to reach to the Nirguna Brahma. And that is why it is called glory of Gayatri. And Gayatri is called Chatushpada. Chatushpada having 4 feet or 4 quarters. One path of which is the cosmos or the created world, and the 3/4 is beyond the world itself. But Gayatri is also a meter or a chanda. We know that. There are metric compositions. The entire Veda is in metric composition. One of the commonest composition used in Veda is Gayatri. When we know that Gayatri is a chanda or meter, when Gayatri is a chanda or the meter, then many people say that how that which is Gayatri as a chanda or the meter can be Brahma. And this explanation of Gayatri is then followed by Jyoti. Why this discussion of Gayatri is going on? Because in Chandogya Upanishad, reference made to the Jyoti, which has created the doubt, is actually to be seen in context with previous mantra, which refers to Gayatri. So it is a flow of utterances of Rishis that is going on. First, the Rishi has referred to Gayatri mantra. Then it has referred to Jyoti. So you cannot isolate Jyoti and say that this is a reference to the common Jyoti. It is definitely a reference to Brahma, because if you take in the flow of Gayatri, which is referring to Brahma as three pada, one pada being the cosmos or the created world, then comes this Jyoti. So Jyoti should also be taken as reference to Saguna Brahma. Why all these bombastic descriptions are normally given as Gayatri, as Chatushpada, and having one pada as... Please try to understand that in Veda, these are given from the Upasana point of view. And when you say Upasana point of view, we are essentially talking about imagination, because that which is comprehensible or apprehendable as an object. Suppose the Ram Murti is in front of you, the Murti is made up of, the Vigraha is made up of stone. So on one hand, we know it is a stone. In the same stone, we are trying to reposit Bhagavan Shri Ram. Now, who is Bhagavan? How is Bhagavan Shri Ram? I don't know. Is he 10-meter tall? I don't know. But Bhagavan Shri Ram is everything in this world. It is very easy to say that. Can you imagine? So, whatever imagination you have of Sri Ram, you have to reposit it in that particular stone. And whatever imagination I can't have, because I'm very lame in terms of my intellect. That is why the saintly or realized people have given us some kind of shape to us, because they saw that in their meditation, so they gave it to us. That is why Ganapati or Ganesha looks like the way he is. Some stupid brains may ask a question that how can you have an ugly devata having such a huge tummy, an elephant's head, sitting on a mouse? All things look absurd. Even a child would not draw a god like that. Then why do you worship it? Why Ganesha is worshipped that way? Is because Ganesha's Veda Ganesha is, as a Nirguna Brahma, cannot be imagined by us. So in the form of its most expansiveness, Vakratunda Mahakaya, how much Mahakaya can we imagine? Maha is ultimately limited by our intellect. We cannot go beyond Akasha. Huge means how huge? And that makes it difficult to think about that. Forget about the meditation, even to think becomes difficult. In order to bring it within the umbrella of the intellectual capacity, the same Ganesha is brought in the form of a shape. And it's not an arbitrary shape. Otherwise, there would have been 15 different types of Ganesha Murtis. No, the Ganesha Murti is only one. Each subsequent Rishi worshipped the same Ganesha. He did not say, I'm changing the Ganesha to a new Ganesha. There's no new Ganesha. That's because at the time when the consciousness starts expanding and moving upwards, the buddhi tries to see with the eye of mind a shape that perhaps can be representative of that vastness of Ganesha. And that is why the miniaturization of the vastness of that Ganesha or the Lord is then brought into the Vigraha, which helps us, mortal like us, to do some archana, if possible, then some upasana. Essentially, an imagination reposed into Nama Rupa, so that first flight would be to the Saguna Brahma. We start from karma, take a road journey to Chitta Shuddhi. The road journey brings us to the airport, from where, because of Chitta Shuddhi, a ticket is issued to take a flight to Saguna Brahma Upasana. With the help of that flight, we go to the another airport where there is a ticket available for the flight into unknown. In that flight, the aircraft disappears, the pilot disappears, the guru called pilot disappears, and the passenger also disappears. The journey from a mortal human to the sadhana chatushta sampanna, which is the road journey. From sadhana chatushta sampanna to sagana brahma sampannata, the first flight. From saguna brahma sampannata to the flight into oblivion, the flight beyond, the flight in nirguna brahma. That is why the Jyoti referred in this particular mantra is definitely a Jyoti that is referring to Brahma only and not the higher individuals. The purport of this particular adhikarana is to help us in what is called as Agni Upasana or Jyotir Upasana as Brahma Vidya. All upasanas do not have any ritual. Rituals are for Chitta Shuddhi. Once Chitta Shuddhi is completed, mind or the buddhi is qualified to take a vertical ascent. Taking a vertical ascent requires you to hold on to something. To hold on to something, whatever is taken as something to hold upon, is called upasya or dheya. That upasya or dheya is essentially a product of imagination. It starts at an imagination level, however, it ends at realistic level. That what is imagined becomes real. In order to make imagined thing to be real, the art or the strategy used is called upasana. And the upasana depends on only one instrument, which is called concentration. So it is the intellect that is used in order to concentrate, so that you become one focused on whatever you have imagined. Then that what is imagined fructifies into actual real state, and such fructification of an imagined thing is becoming an imagined thing. So if you are imagining you to be Akasha, then you can contemplate or do upasana on Akasha, and the palaprapti of that will be you will become Akasha. When you become Akasha, meaning would you leave your body? No. What happens is all the guna of Akasha dwell in you. What is the guna of Akasha? Vastness. What will happen to you? You will become vast. Similarly, Jyotish Charnadhikarana. When you contemplate upon a Jyoti, imagining it to be a Jyoti of very high effulgence, then what happens? As a phalam of that, you shall have effulgence of thousands of suns. Where will that effulgence reside? In the same body. Where will it reside? In the same buddhi. So that means the one in whose buddhi thousands of suns are residing is not a common individual. He is an extraordinary individual. He is a muni. He is a rishi. And if a small intellect can make me understand so many things in my secular life, one with thousand suns, what will happen to him? For him, there will be light thrown upon so many things which normal person cannot know. So it is a step in becoming sarvajna. As his sarvajnata increases and reaches his optimum, the optimum sarvajnata about everything is special quality or aishwarya of Ishwara. So he become Ishwara Tulya. And till the time he becomes Ishwar Tulya, he is still in Saguna Brahma Upasana. After becoming Ishwara Tulya, the next flight is to go beyond Ishwara, because Ishwara is essentially a restricted entity as long as Maya exists. So to go beyond Ishwara is to go beyond Maya. That means going beyond both Ishwara and Maya. When you go beyond both, that means you go beyond to a place where there is nothing called beyond. That means from restricted you go to unrestricted. It even cannot be called unrestricted because there is no restriction and unrestriction. Both things do not exist there. That is the way of doing the upasana. And this upasana being of a higher world, it is called Brahma Vidya. Chandogya Upanishada or the Upanishads are talking about Brahma Vidya. In Brahma Vidya, these Akasha, Prana, these are the imaginations or these are the highest manifestation that one can meditate upon. And that is why an ordinary person like us, when we read Upanishada, we say he's talking about fire, Agni, he's talking about Akasha, he's talking about Prana. Prana means that what I have inside which helps me to breathe. Akash means the space that I see around me. Prana means that which is residing in me. Agni means that which I'm using for cooking or using for lightning in the darkness. This is not that ordinary meaning, but it is an extraordinary meaning, is the purport that is explained to us by Badarayana Rishi and further elaborated to us by Shankaracharya. Now that we have started about Agni, why it is the reference, Jyoti is reference to Brahma, it is brought us back to Gayatri Mantra, then it becomes important for us to know what is Gayatri Upasana. That because in this Adhikarana, support has been given by from Gayatri Upasana. So we shall see in the next session what is Gayatri Upasana, how Gayatri is imagined for the Upasana purpose by simply again and again repeating Gayatri Mantra at a Vaikhari level is not going to help in any case. Even if it is with best possible pronunciation, it will not help, because Gayatri Upasana is a very high Upasana. How it is done, why it is higher Upasana, that would be also a part of coming session so that we can understand Jyotir Adhikarana. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. We have a perfect definition for sutras, like Alpaksharam, Artha Bahulam, and all. No, if you can put it that in the group, because as we progress in the study, more requirements are emerging. Like this, when you are talking about this Alpaksha, I mean, definition of the sutra and all. So I just recalled it. but I don't know the full thing.
I will.
Then there are many few things which there are some questions and there are certain observations. What I made. Brahma, actually, we have a perfect thing, Brahma with Brahmaiva Bhavati. So that all doubts are cleared there to a great extent. And Gita also gives us a lot of comfort about learning this because Yadaidamsi Samidokni Basmasat Kurude Arjuna, 4th chapter. Jnana Sarva Karmani Basmasat Kurude Tada. That is, beyond all doubt, it has been described there. That is one thing which I observe as I listen to your discourse. And beyond all doubt, our Hanumanji has described this to, mentioned this to the Ramji, Lord Ram. So, as Deha Buddhyatu Dasoham, Jiva Buddhya Todamshaha, and Atma Buddhya Twamevaham. Then 3 different levels have been described by him. There also we are getting some clearance about this. Then yeah, these are the things I now one more question I have to ask about the light. Light is ultimately, you have correctly said that supreme is the light only. That light is not such a gross light, of course. When the world is made of nama and rupa, I mean names and forms, whether forget about the name rupa, whether the light is there or not, even if the light is not, rupa is existing there. But in order to witness that rupa, in order to see that rupa, we need light. Without light, we cannot even see the rupa. So light is the utmost, the topmost requirement for anything, even for the knowledge, even for the gross level. So that also is very much agreeing to what you are, giving the, giving in the knowledge, giving in the discourse. It is very much agreeable. So we have to think in these lines. Yeah, these are the things I have just observed. Yeah, okay. No, that what do you call the Alpacharam Artha Bhavanam, that definition, if you can give me, because on many occasions, the problem, here, our problem, there are certain things, highly disturbing things are coming in the press and all. To eliminate Sanatana Dharma, you have read that, you must have read about it. This is because what I observe is that we have great principles in Sanatana Dharma, the most great principles in Sanatana Dharma. What we lack is Acharana. Acharana is what we lack actually. Even for those who do this Acharana, they are not going beyond Acharana as we are supposed to go beyond that Acharana. So these are the main drawbacks what I observe in our Sanatana Dharma. Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
You more questions?
Hari Om, Dr. Sanjay
Ji.
Now the sutras we are studying, and as per my understanding, we have done like about Akasha, then Pranadikaram, then Jyotishya Dhyakaram. So our understanding, is it correct that we are like dissecting about this Mahabhuta one by one? That is correct. And usually when we think about like Mahabhuta means like Akasha, okay, immediately we say that, okay, whatever like I can see is Akasha, Vayu, what we can see. Is it in that sequence or how it is?
It is from known to unknown. We all know light, we all know Akasha, we all know Vayu, we all know Prana. in the sense of limited intellectual capacity. So it's like you picking up a stone and saying that this is Himalaya. Actually, Himalaya is millions of such stones make Himalaya. So you start from one stone and then start imagining how the 1 million stone will be there, and automatically you will reach to the place where you will see what Himalaya is like. So similarly, we start from ordinary Panchamahabhuta or its manifestations. However, it's not only the Vayu that we know of, because we know some manifestations of Vayu. My intellect currently gives me, because this is ultimately what we receive through Indriyas. Indriyas are a very limited resource to know the things under the creation. So we know only the glimpse of everything. Our eyes are able to see to a certain extent, to a certain depth. Actual depth is far bigger and more than that. That is why when they talk about Divi Sahasra Suryeshu, some Rishis talking about thousands of suns in the sky. We have only one sun in the sky. So we cannot imagine 1,000. But this upasana that we are talking about is about the ultimate essence of sun when we are talking of thousands and thousands of suns. So that is where the kalpana. So you start from what you have, one Surya. Now you expand the effulgence to a level that all effulgence is covered under it. That is why this is not a simple upasana, it is Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is, it requires enormous amount of intellectual capacity. That's why what me and you can imagine is not what a Rishi imagines. In fact, he is not only even at imagination level, through imagination he has already reached the realistic level. Knowing the essence of Prakasha, for them the Surya is, that is why it is said that under that auspices, even the sun is lighted. He is the father of the sun. So imagine such an effulgent thing. For us, sun is ultimate, but he is ultimate of ultimate. So that is why these are all upasanas meant on Pancha Mahabhuta or its manifestation, but in a different form, at a different level, as a different manifestation, for which how that imagination can be developed? Only when the ekagrata is there, automatically your capacity to imagine increases. How is it that you come to know quadratic equation? Only when you go to the 8th standard. And how will you come to know theory of relativity? Only when you go to the BSc physics. And how will you understand the nuclear fusion and fission reaction? When you become PhD. So it's like opening the doors of the intellect as and when you move upwards in the meditative practices. Hari Om.